Okay, so just going to go through horizontal here. What I'm going to run through is the basic execution of horizontal, what horizontal should do when a couple of different defensive looks get thrown at them, and sort of the do's and don'ts of horizontal, just to get everybody on the same page. Everybody in blue is your cutters. Offense. Here's your main cutters. Just for naming, I'm going to call them 3 and 4. This is 1, your primary handler, and we can call this your primary handler, and then you've got your other handlers, and then you have your 2 wings, and you've got 3 and 4. Okay, so typically what happens with horizontal is that it becomes sort of a free-for-all. Everybody, what you see a lot of the times is the defender, and I'll just put defenders here in red, typically might be doing something like this, and this is the direction of the force that they're putting on, so this would be a force this way. The defenders might be pushing them in, and they might sandwich them, or whatever. But most of the time, you'll find one of the defenders is allowing that person to make the cut in, and that's kind of what the whole purpose is here, is that they're coming in hard, and defense wants them to do that. The disc goes up, they get the disc. Now we've got another offensive player, they make another little cut here, and they maybe go across, they get the disc. The problem with this is that most of the time, the distance here is very small. Your first 2 cuts have resulted in maybe 20 feet of space, and now you've got all your handlers, your 2 cutters, and sometimes a wing behind you, and now you've got a wing, somebody on the side of the field who's probably covered fairly well, is the only active person that has any sort of option. Come in this way, or maybe go out and come back in, and everything starts to fall apart. The other thing that happens a lot is the disc goes to the side, and the wing comes straight down while they're open, but they're open because the defensive strategy is to let them be open, and the disc comes straight over to them, and then everything starts trying to push right up the middle, or right up the side instead of the middle, and a 5-foot path. So 2 things that you see a lot of times in horizontal, and it doesn't make too much sense.
So here's a quick example of trying to move it up the sideline where it should have gone to the swing in the middle. We're going to push it up about 5 feet of field and try to make a couple of quick passes. The defense just keeps compressing until it gets to the point where it can make a play on the disc and it turns over. So it sort of illustrates why it's difficult to get, you can see here the defense just takes a look, and now because we're playing in such a small part of the field, they get a turnover. This one is trying to illustrate playing with really short cuts. So the first pass goes, and that's not too bad, it'd be great to see a little bit deeper. The next pass is really short, that one goes to the wing. So at this point the cutter isn't expecting that, the second cutter was expecting the disc, so they've got nothing, so it goes back rightfully, so it gets swung to the middle, which is perfect, and now we should see a really big cut happening. So this time though, we've got a really short cut again, it's about 15 feet. Handler comes up, grabs the disc because the cutter wasn't ready. Second cutter, again, what is this, 5 passes I guess, and we move the disc 30 feet, and you can see that everything's getting smaller and shorter, and the D is collapsing around us. It's making it more difficult. We're getting more and more passes, and we're making less and less ground. Another short pass, another short gain, and this is going to end up where we're just going to get smaller and smaller. Here we got another 10 feet pass, and no one's cutting. We got no space, we got no area to move. That one could have been D'd by a number of people. Kent's mark, or it's just happened to be a
That's
miss.
not horizontal. That's not the way horizontal should be played. So what we're going to do is talk about the way it should be played, and the reason why you play horizontal, and what it's supposed to do. The whole purpose of horizontal is to open up this part of the field, right? You want to open up the entire middle of the field for these two cutters. You want to make sure that they have space. The strategy really is to reduce the whole game and the offensive thrust down to two people, and do a man-on-man matchup and see who can get open, right? So if you give somebody, a good cutter, enough space, they'll probably get open and probably get a good cut in at some point, right? The defender can only cover so much. They can't cover both the back and the front and the side all at the same time. So you're pulling the other defensive players out of the mix. No poaching. You've got lots of space, and you've just got two really good cutters doing something here. So if this is our primary handler, the one in the middle, and this is 3 and 4, sort of our first set of cutters. You can call them, or we can just call them the cutters, whatever you want. But what we should see is, before the disc is really initiated, there's maybe a quick cut coming in, going way deep, and then coming in hard. What we want to see is distance here, right? We want to see that first cut coming up and the disc landing, 2/3 of the field or more, or at least over half, to the first cutter. So you've got a huge amount of space. This is really important for that first cutter to make that big cut. When you don't come straight in off the bat. You don't come running in and get 10 feet. You do this for two reasons. One, obviously yardage, but two is that at first cut, think about it from a defensive perspective. If you're playing a team and their horizontal is really strong and their first cut has covered 2/3 of the field, you're in a really bad position, right? Now, the whole, your defensive posture is behind the disc. You're playing catch up, and everybody's, their offensive play has got a bit of a strategical, tactical advantage over you here. Now, 3, ideally, is doing some sort of mirror, right? Keeping themselves out of the play, away from this, so they can't do any switching. But then, comes in for the kill. And this is really, if you have a good team with strong cutters and strong handlers, a point is scored in 2 passes. That's what horizontal is supposed to do. Isolate it down to 2 people. They can get open, get big yardage, and get that first big cut, and then look for a closure in the end zone, right? So the middle cutters, 3 and 4 here, should have the entire field open to them. Excuse me. How do they get the field open to them? Well, that's the job of these guys right here, right? That's the hard part. Because, of course, defensive looks, you're going to have the defensive player coming in over here, right? So you're going to have somebody marking, maybe they're marking this way, etc. But if they see this big green space sitting right in front of them, right here, what are they going to do? They're going to come in. 9 times out of 10. If this wing doesn't do anything about it, they don't have them engaged, they don't have them watching, watching them and not the play. Maybe they're watching out of the corner of their eye, but they're worried about this guy going long or coming in or whatever. It's a threat. So if this defensive player comes in and starts blocking things up, they have to be punished. So we'll go through that in a second. But
this is just a quick clip to demonstrate that you can get and you can score in 2 passes. Here's Luke, he's on the end zone. He's on the sideline, so pretend he's in the middle. It's still applicable. He makes a shot. He's got a good cut going out, right? The first cut you didn't see was probably in and then out. And here comes Allie, and Meg are actually the 2 cutters. They just happen to be playing on the sidelines. The wing wasn't there, so they're able to use the whole field and score. So you can do it in 2 passes.